I will now do the first reading today. This is from Carl Sagan, Pale Blue Dot, written in 1994. Look again at the dot. That's here. That's home. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived here, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings and imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in a great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores the responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
We heard in the reading this morning, the one that Ruth shared with us from Carl Sagan, saying, "Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds." We have been living that in so many ways on our planet for so long now, exacerbated since October 7th. This weekend, last night for us, Iran launched an attack on Israel as we slept. Have leaders forgotten that killing begets more killing, more death, more suffering? When will they awaken to the depravity of war? I keep asking myself over and over again, how did we get to a place in the year 2024 where our response to violence is exactly as it was 1,000 years ago? When will these leaders realize that tiny actions create chaos and greater repercussions that ripple throughout all of creation? Awakening is an integral part in the celebration of spring, and it is a huge source of tiny actions begetting grander actions. I live deep in the woods, and every day the world looks like one thing when I leave my house, and when I come back, it's completely different. Things have emerged from the earth, colors that I haven't seen since last spring. It keeps changing. Transformation is integral in the Christian concept of resurrection. Transformation is what happens to Jews as they work their way through the story of the Exodus and Passover in the Haggadah, sharing the journey through history and also framing the pathway for future Jews. Awakening is what our Muslim friends have done during their holy month of Ramadan, allowing the power of their faith and the powers of prayer to awaken in their body the depth of their love and commitment to their faith as they live out their ritual of fasting, paying close attention to gratitude. Gratitude for the little things, for their understanding and belief in the teachings of their faith. Awakening as the earth does in its natural rhythms and cycles. Awakening to the reality of our earth as sacred creation, sustaining force for all life as we embrace the message of Earth Day and the imperative to save our environment and our planet. Awakening to our own stories, for as sacred creatures, our stories become sacred texts. How to weave these together or separate them is a challenge. As we are one earth-based community with different threads, it is essential to weave the threads together, the threads of all these awakenings, as that is what is happening for us, to us, and around us all the time. Millions and millions of stories being told separately and together, weaving a stitch or a thread here and there, overlapping, intertwining, lagging in the back, pushing forward, in and out, over and around. Colors, colors subtle, vibrant, radiant, and muted, all blending to create the tapestry of humanity, life, living, existence, all blending to create one pattern, one design. We know it, but we'll never understand it fully. For from the tiny acorn buried under last year's leaves and earth begins the slow unfurling of the acorn shell, allowing roots to grow, fed by the decay of the acorn's outer layers and the moisture of the earth. From tiny acorns, mighty oak trees grow. Humanity is slowly awakening to the reality that in the bigger scheme of things, each of us is small. Oh, so very, very small. That tiny speck of dust Carl Sagan mentioned. Maybe a little bigger, maybe the size of an acorn. Together, however, as human beings, we are a fierce and powerful force, for good or for ill. Bound together, we have the force of a mighty oak tree to block ill will. As Jews wander in the desert in the retelling of the story of the Exodus during the Passover Seder, we are reminded of the importance both of faith and of symbolism. We are reminded that if we forget the story of our ancestors, we have lost both our roots and our branches. All of these spring awakenings remind us that, like the fresh spring greens on the Seder plate, symbolized by the parsley then dipped in the salt water to allow us to experience the tears that flavor so much of both life, good and bad, joy and sorrow. It is the same message given by breaking the glass at the end of a Jewish wedding. Even in times of great joy, there is sorrow. Your reality must always be melded with that of others. My parents always said that until all the children are safe and have food in their bellies and education, none of us should rest. For the state of the children is the state of the world. Our children are our acorns. While one is celebrating the rebirth of spring and the resurrection of Christ, another is grieving the loss of loved ones and the destruction of home and place of worship. We must learn how to celebrate the joy and the sorrow intertwined, for no one living creature does not impact another. The butterfly effect reminds us that when the wings of a tiny butterfly flap on one side of the earth, something is caused to change 1,000,000 miles away. Small things cause ripple effects, going out in radiating circles, ever wider and grander. When a volcano erupts in one place, ash causes temperatures to plummet on the other side of the world. When Putin chooses to attack Ukraine, the economic impacts impact families across the world. the woven, intertwined nature of life and existence on this little blue marble, this small sphere orbiting in space, is enormous and deeply consequential, and equally, at the same time, in the bigger specter of things, it is unimportant and insignificant. Unfortunately, too many people have not awakened to the nature of interconnection and believe only that what they do doesn't matter. People have not come to understand the nature of limited resources or the damage of hoarding and self-serving choices. We are witnessing this today to some degree because our ancestors had no concept of limited resources or right relationship with a planet or those different from themselves. Today, we live in an ever-shrinking world. We cannot allow ourselves to lift ourselves above others. We know that there is only one human race, and we are all siblings. Years ago, I asked the children of my church in a conversation we were having what they thought our church taught. A lot of hands popped up. I called on several children and heard about the principles. I heard about friendship. I heard about being kind. Then I called on a 5-year-old, and he said, "Our churches teaches that everyone's heart is the same color." There was a mixed sound of silence and awe in the congregation in that moment at how succinctly this child had explained the faith and belief so integral to the practice of Unitarian Universalism. Love is at the heart of our faith. I will also tell you that his sister, in the car ride home, said, "Everyone's hearts may be the same color, but smokers have black lungs." No matter how profound, there is a contrast. Ah, the awakening. Yes, all our hearts are the same color, but what we do and the choices we make and that are made for us can change vital parts of us, including the color of our organs. How do we create a world in which circumstances do not change the color of some people's organs? How do we awaken to the harm created by humans that alters the health and well-being of our pink-hearted siblings? How do we stop creating broken, damaged hearts and hearts whose color is changed by hatred and chemicals? A lot of times in old stories, they would tell you that evil characters had a black heart. We know that's not true. No one's heart is truly black. Underneath it all, they're pink and beating, or they wouldn't be alive. We must collaborate. We must awaken to the reality that no one person, or even a small group, has all the perfect answers for our continued existence, and that when we work together, we achieve so many more possibilities. One of my favorite books in my seminary years, which was a very, very, very long time ago now, was a book by the author Walter Wink. It was titled The Third Way. In this book, we learn that there is always my way and your way, but the third way is the way we come to when we work together. We come together by a combination of our ideas and our paths and come up with something completely new, completely different, that may still have pieces of the two original thoughts. My colleague in Springfield, Reverend Jason Seymour, frequently says to his congregation that you can always have your way if there are enough ways. I ask you to think about what if your way or my way is flawed, and when we combine them, what we get is a worse way. That's possible too, but mostly when we listen, really listen to one another, what we can find is something better, something we can agree on, something that can help spur a movement towards a third way, a way that takes all of the mine and all of the yours and builds an ours, a way that helps us see that the resources of this world really are grand enough and diverse enough to supply everyone's basic needs and then some, if we only work together. The time has come for us to be wide awake. Awaken to the beauty we are squandering. It is time for us to return to our spiritual and religious understanding of connection with the creation of the divine, instead of the destruction of the holy creation of the magical blue marble we call home, and that all faiths at their core teach us to treasure. Bill McKibben offers steps for making things right. He says, our goals need to be to stop burning things on planet Earth. Human beings have engaged in combustion for 200,000 years. It's as Darwin said, one of the two things alongside language that really made us human. And for the last 300, it's what made us modern, as we figured out how to burn not just wood and dung and things that were our birthright, but coal and gas and oil, the trinity that powered the Industrial Revolution and modernity itself. A time when we lost touch with the spiritual, the sacred, and moved farther and farther away from our agrarian roots. Roots which are the basis of the rituals and holy days of all the world's religious traditions. Let us awaken to our deeper connections, our natural rhythms, the ones that connect us with the people across cultures and natural borders. Connect us with other living creatures and help us to understand the sacred nature of the world into which we are brought at our births and the world from which we depart at our deaths from this plane. McKibben continued on saying, that need to do that, the 200,000-year-old need to set things on fire, we can now do away with, if we want to, in a very short order. For all but a small handful of tasks, the fact is that the provision of the good Lord of a large ball of burning gas hung in the sky 93 million miles away provides us with what we need. It sends rays that photovoltaic panels can intercept and turn directly into power. It differentially heats the earth, producing the breezes that turn wind turbines. And these are the sources of energy whose price is dropping fastest, whose ecological cost, though not trivial, is the most benign of the sources we know yet. And it's clearly our way out, our hope, and our option. He then continues, there's a group called Third Act founded by Bill McKibben. Its aim, McKibben says, is to take people over the age of 60 and get them mobilized around issues of climate and democracy. For McKibben, taking action on such issues can mean, at times, getting arrested. He tells us he's been arrested about a dozen times. Remember, churches are largely filled with people over 60. What amazing form of visionary outreach and awakening to make a faith community get noticed. McKibben said, I remember in 2011 when I was organizing the first arrests around Keystone in Washington, which turned into the biggest civil disobedience action about anything this country had seen in a long time. He says, I wrote the letter asking people to come to Washington and get arrested. And one of the things I said was, I didn't think that young people should have to be the cannon fodder here. Young people were leading the work. But if you're 19, it's possible an arrest record is not the best thing for your resume. One of the few unmixed blessings of growing older is, past a certain point, what the hell are they going to do with you? Taking risks, allowing ourselves to live our faith boldly for the beauty of the earth and all that it provides us at this time is part of a critical awakening. It is too late to dilly-dally about our siblings, the living creatures with hearts as pink and beating as ours are threatened. We must awaken to the difference we can make when we choose a new way. We must own that we are no longer tiny acorns, but have grown into mighty oak trees. And together, we are a forest. May we choose to harness our power and be the source, the awakening force beyond change for our own community, and may the thread, the stitches that bind us together, bind us to an ever wider body of the awakened, working for a greater good. Shalom, salam, Ashe, amen, and blessed be.